I have been looking forward to doing this video for so long. I love Celtic folklore. I also may be putting myself at risk by saying some of these names, so like make sure to like this video because otherwise I didn't die for nothing. Hey guys, it's Rachel Fisher and today we are doing our top 10 dark urban legends of Celtic folklore. I'm excited, let's get started. Number 10, the Dear Dew. I always find it fascinating how we can find similar breadcrumbs around the world that depict legends of vampires. The Celtic depiction of the vampire is the Dear Dew, and the story behind her is heartbreaking. The Dear Dew once was a breathtaking, beautiful woman who had given her love to an innocent farm boy. But her father was greedy and arranged her to marry an abusive chieftain for wealth and land. No amount of begging could save her from her fate, and unfortunately, the marriage went through. After the wedding day, the woman fell into a deep depression, not eating or drinking until her body wasted away. Her lost love visited the grave every single day, wishing her to return, but come the year anniversary of her death, it was revenge that brought her back. She went straight to her father's bed and sucked the life from him. Not yet sated, she went of course to her brutal husband and, finding him surrounded by women in lustful acts, flew into a rage and not only sucked out his soul, but drained all the blood from his body. Every year on the anniversary of her death, she rises to seduce young men before devouring their blood. So, to this day, on the anniversary of her death in Waterford, people place rocks on her grave so she cannot rise from the earth. But sometimes, if the rocks aren't heavy enough, the Dear Dew escapes, seeking to sate her bloodlust. Number 9, the Dullahan. The Dullahan is a foreboding headless horseman who's set to ride during festival days. He is said to be one of the most terrifying creatures who resides in the spirit world. Some consider him the angel of death. He rides a jet black stallion, and his flowing black cape blazes behind him while he rides. But his head does not sit on his shoulders, but is held in his hand. It is said that his eyes can see for miles at night, but the most terrifying thing about him is if you see him. If you don't avert your eyes as he rides past, you may get struck by a bucket of blood, or lose sight in one of your eyes. But beware if his steed begins to slow and approach you, for if he stops before you and calls your name, your soul will be sucked from your body. His only weakness is gold, so instead of trying to outrun him, carry a piece of gold in your pocket to ward him off. You know, just because everybody has gold, I guess. Number 8, speaking of creatures you don't want to encounter at night, next up we have the Banshee. The Banshee can appear in many forms, so some say she appears as a beautiful woman in a shroud, or a headless naked hag holding a bucket of blood. But even more terrifying than her appearance is her song. The Banshee is an omen of death and is said to appear to warn of violent death, either of a loved one or for the listener. Some Banshees even do the killing themselves, while other legends say they are spirits tied to their loved ones and sing songs of care and concern for the ones about to pass. At one time in Ireland, it was considered blasphemous not to believe in Banshees, and some older generations still believe to this day. Real or superstition, the legend of the Banshee is a haunting story of an inescapable fate. Number 7, Balor and the Evil Eye. Balor was a legendary ancient being who existed long before the Dullahan, a race of godlike people with supernatural powers. When Balor was a young man, he spied on his father and his druids as they performed a spell to lay waste to the land. Vapors from the spell infected his eye, enlarging it and granting it the power of death. Balor himself was said to be enormous, so large in fact that it took 4 men to lift his eyelid open for use. Whatever met his gaze would wither and die, including grass, trees, and even turn men to stone. But on the same day he was created, the druids prophesied he would be killed by his grandson. So, of course, he locked his daughter away. But of course, someone snuck in, had 3 babies with her, and though Balor drowned 2 of them, the 3rd snuck away and finally killed him one day in battle. Number 6, the Kelpie. Also known as the Nope Horse. This is the creature grannies warn their grandchildren about to keep them away from the water. And no, I'm not talking about the Australian dog breed. That's adorable. Kelpies are horses that linger near rivers and bodies of water that seem harmless at first, but if you try and ride them, you will stick to them and they will drag you to the depths to consume you, like a sticky horse. But if horses don't tempt you, they also can appear as beautiful women to lure you in with their feminine wiles. Or they can appear as hairy humanoids that wait in trees and leap on unsuspecting travelers and smash them. Depictions of these creatures are absolutely terrifying, and I can't even imagine what it would be like to be dragged underwater by a very sticky horse. They can also summon up sudden floods and rapids to drown unsuspecting victims. However, Kelpies do have a weak spot. If you do find them disguised as horses, if you get a hold of their bridle, it must serve you, giving you the strength and stamina of over 10 horses. Number 5. Carmen. If you're keeping track of evil witches, make sure to add this woman to your list. Carmen was an evil witch who terrorized the land along with her 4 sons: darkness, evil, and violence. Yeah. She placed a vicious blight on the crops of Ireland until the gods of Tuatha De Danann brought their magic against her. They drove her sons across the sea and imprisoned her, but were tasked with throwing a festival in her name each year, otherwise the land would be faced with a blight. Carmen reportedly died of grief in 600 BCE, and the festival is held every 3 years on August 1st. Number 4. The Fae. If you're already a fan of Irish folklore, then you may already be familiar with imps or the Fae. Shh. And the reasons why we fear them. Fairy lore, I think, is the next vampire craze. They're mysterious, immortal, powerful, and very sexy. What else could you want? But you may want to think twice before wandering into the woods hoping for some handsome Fae man to take you away. Probably not a good idea. Anyone who knows the lore of the Fae will warn you not to take them lightly. They love to mess with mortals and are notoriously known for stealing babies in the dead of night to replace them with possessed changelings. Though they could sometimes be friendly, they often look for ways to trick you. So, if you do want to get on their good side, here are a few very important rules to follow. Number 1, do not call them fairy. It is an insult. Call them good neighbor, imp, elf, or Seelie White. Number 2, always turn your socks inside out when going for a hike. The imps will not be able to lead you astray and make you impossibly lost. Number 3, if they offer you food, deny it. It's a sure way to become trapped in the fairy realm. But like, if that's what you want, I mean, do it. Though I would expect some torment if you do, so probably don't. Number 4, never lie to them. They will never lie to you, but they have a way of twisting words. But if you want respect, you gotta give respect. Number 5, if you accept a gift, you must give one greater in return, but do not say thank you. It means you owe whatever they ask in return. And lastly, number 6, carry iron or salt with you to protect against the darker imps. Anyways, there is a couple tips for you, but if you do come across one, don't brag about it. They hate that. Number 3, the Dark Man. Now, I mentioned that some imps are mischievous and even dangerous, but there is one being even they fear, the Dark Man. He who lurks, he who stalks, the dark druid. Even whispering his name invites his attention. So let's hope I'm not in trouble here, guys. Some say he's a shadow man with malevolent powers. Others say he serves the Queen of the Cid coldly and without remorse, claiming anyone she calls for. Those he took were never heard from again. The fact that our good neighbors fear him so much is enough to say that we should too, especially considering the story of the taking of Finn's wife. The Dark Man fell in love with a beautiful woman who spurned his love, so of course he cursed her by turning her into a fawn. The only way she could be released was if she found her true love, and that she did. Once she entered the house of the wise Finn McCool, she was safe. For years they lived together until Finn went off to battle. When he returned home, he discovered that she'd been deceived and taken by the Dark Druid who appeared in his likeness. Finn never saw her again. Number 2, the Avertalk. Some may know Vlad the Impaler as the main inspiration for the character of Dracula, but considering Bram Stoker's Irish heritage, the origins of this famous villain may have been closer to home. The Irish king Avertalk ruled between Dungiven and Garva and was abhorred by his people. But despite his awful reputation, his name isn't that intimidating. It's actually an old Irish name that means deaf fellow, and many believe he was also a man of small stature. Some say he was a dwarf, others say that he just lost his legs in an accident so he was shorter. He was an evil and cruel wizard, hated and feared by his clans. He was also insanely jealous and suspected his wife of having an affair. So one night he slipped out a window and tried to peer into a room to catch her in the act, but instead he slipped and fell to his death. Yay, I guess. The people, relieved to see his demise, buried him right away, standing upright in the ground as for his kingliness he needed to be. Sitting upright in the ground, which was tradition. But the next morning, he appeared demanding bowls of blood from his people, freshly poured from their wrists. The people begged a neighboring chieftain to save them, and he tried to kill him not once, but 3 times, yet still he would appear the next morning, demanding blood. The chieftain sought the advice from a neighboring saint, and this time when he killed him, he buried him upside down, stabbed him in the heart with a stake from the yew tree, piled ash wood on top of him, and placed atop the grave a heavy stone slab. You can still visit the grave to this day, but locals still fear the sight, and some have even had very eerie experiences. Ooh. Number 1. the Slua. There's one night a year that you should fear the Slua, spirits of death who show no mercy to whoever crosses their path. The only way to dissuade them from taking your soul is if you offer up another soul in return. You may know this night as Halloween, but those who believe in Celtic folklore call it Samhain. Some say they used to be imps who became twisted and warped by dark magic. It is said they fly from the west in a dark mass, seeking souls to drag back with them into the darkness. On Samhain, fires were forbidden so as not to attract them to your door, and windows on the west side of the house were locked shut. They are also locked tight if someone in the house is ill or dying, as the Slua often delight in stealing souls before they can give their last rites. But you can also call them to you by saying their name aloud. So, like, guess I'm screwed. And with that, we end our top 10. I guess we will see what happens tonight to see if that tale is true. I hope it isn't. Wish me luck. And someone show me where to get an iron horseshoe. Good thing my window faces north, I guess. If you like this video, make sure to do the thing. Like it, subscribe, comment, boom. My name is Rachel Fisher, and hopefully I'll see you later. And please don't follow my lead and summon these folks to your door, okay? Until next time, guys, take care. They can also summon up sudden